Alright, so I want to make a video updating everyone on the new case totals as usual, as well as getting some other important things to say the least. So getting right into it here, Canada's up to 41,143 cases with 1876 dead. And again, they don't show the recovered cases for Canada for whatever reason, or the completed test for Canada for whatever reason. Um, Alberta's up to 3,720 with 68, 319 new cases. So the amount of new cases continues to stay high, but a lot of people are recovering. A lot of people, I mean, we did like 6,000 tests yesterday, so we continue to ramp up the amount of people that are getting tested. So when you ramp up the amount of people that are getting tested, you're going to ramp up the amount of people that are testing positive. And I seen the story of, I think it was in Ontario. They've been testing every mother that's about to give birth, and they found that, like, I think it was 15%, or it was a pretty high amount of them had the virus, and the overwhelming majority of them had no little to no symptoms. So the point being is that when you ramp up the testing, you're going to start uncovering a lot of these people that are asymptomatic. We still have a very low percentage of people in the hospital. um, so that, I mean, that's the big thing the big thing to take note of, is that if the amount of cases going up, I would say the real number that's big is the amount of people in hospital and the amount of people dying. Because if you get it, you have mild symptoms or no symptoms, then who really cares? As long as you're not spreading it, it doesn't matter. So that's the thing I wanted to point out. The other thing to point out too is that I said Saskatchewan unveiled their plan to reopen things starting May 4th. Apparently now New Brunswick and Ontario are going to come out with their plans to reopen within the next week. I heard rumors that Alberta is coming out with their plan next week. I'm not sure if it's for sure yet, but I hope they come out with it. And like I say, I keep saying, but to me, it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, the only reason that people argue against it is that they're big government globalists, that they want power to be as centralized as possible, which means that rural, New Brunswick or rural Saskatchewan needs to stay closed as long as, um, Calgary, Toronto, and Quebec, any of these big epicenters. Like, how can you argue with a straight face for that? So that's the one thing I wanted to point out, is that power should be as decentralized as possible. If a small town in Saskatchewan wants to reopen, then why not? Like, why not? There's no the big problem with that, why these politicians are so afraid of opening. I mean, number one is that a lot of the ones, the more big government globalist socialist types, really like it because we're more socialist under this current way of doing things than we are before. So they really like that. Not only that, they want to abuse the power because right now they're front and center with everything. Look at the mainstream media. They're big on keeping things closed because guess what? Their ratings are up. They're making money. They're still working. So again, I don't I have a very hard time taking people's opinions, regardless of whether or not they're quote unquote experts, when they're, if anything, benefiting from the current system and the way things are going. And it's different too. Like, don't tell me, oh, you just want it because you can go back to work. Well, yeah, I want it because I can live. Like, the people working at CBC on TV, they'll do perfectly fine if they lose their job. Most of us are within a paycheck, or a month or two away from being basically homeless. So there's a big difference there. Um, but like I say, provinces are coming out with plans, and like I say, one of the main reason why I think some of these governments, at least the non-leftist governments, it seems, are afraid of doing it, is that inevitably there will be a second wave, and they'll get blamed that, oh, you guys shouldn't have opened things so quick. We should have stayed in our authoritarian lockdowns. And like I say, they'll get blamed for it, even though there's going to be a second wave no matter what. There's going to be a second wave no matter what. And it's not worth, I've still yet to hear someone come up with a good argument to why we should risk bringing on the worst depression, the worst recession we've ever seen to save the lives of, I mean, in Alberta, we may have saved the lives of 50 people at the absolute most. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of people unemployed. Are you honestly telling me that the lives of those 50 people, most of them would have died very soon anyway? It's not that I'm saying it's a good thing. I know people twist my words there. Is those lives of those people who, like I say, most of them going to die very soon anyway, or supersede the lives of hundreds of thousands of people? Like I thought you care about the majority. No, but you like the authoritarianism, so that's why they support that kind of stuff. And like I say, the models have been drastically overestimated the amount of cases up to this point, like drastically overestimated it. So again, there's no good argument. I mean, I think the argument is okay, how should we go about reopening? To me, anybody who still thinks that we should be closed going into May is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And again, you care more about authoritarian keeping the authoritarian lockdown going because you like the socialism that it's bringing on. So again, the debate comes down to how should we go about reopening things. And my point of view is okay. Let's open things up. Let's say second week of May. Um, that's 3 weeks away. Keep nursing homes quarantined and give people the option. I would say people over the age of 50 to 60 even suggest be like, hey, you should stay home for another month or so. Or if you're going to get some masks, get some gloves, keep the social distancing, all that kind of stuff too. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that we had plenty of time to stock up on medical supplies, but yet the government isn't doing that. So again, that this keeping things closed makes no sense. And the other problem too is that the government doesn't really have much of an incentive to fix things, because the problem is that if the problem gets worse, well, guess what people are going to beg for? Well, more government. So if anything, the government has an incentive to completely botch this whole situation, and that's something that I really needs to be talked about more. Because the incentive should be to prevent the situation in the first place, but the way of doing that is people would realize, hey, we really didn't need the government's help with this kind of stuff. We could have did it by ourselves. It wasn't that bad. But if the problem gets worse, guess what people beg for? Oh, we need to lock things down. We need to have these snitch lines. We need to be fining people for going outside. You can only go for groceries once a week. Communism light there. Um, all this kind of stuff. So that's why the government does this kind of stuff, and it boggles my mind why people can't recognize this more. Um, but anyway, let's get to some other stuff here. This is a presentation done by Stefan Molyneux about the Nova Scotia shooting. It's really good. I think I suggest people check it out. Like I say, because he brings up some things that I didn't even know and some things I did know, but I didn't know why I didn't make more of a point of. The first one being this guy him and his friend assaulted a guy back in 2001, and I think you could make a pretty good argument that the assault was so severe that you could argue that it was attempted murder. So how did someone who, I mean, his friend hit the guy with a crowbar in the head. Like, if you hit someone in the head with a crowbar, I'm pretty sure that's attempted murder, because if you hit someone hard enough, they could die. They could easily go into a coma. They could have, permanent, brain damage, all that kind of stuff. They stomped on him with steel-toed boots. Like, to me, like, I think it's a pretty good argument. You could say that was attempted murder. So number one, how did he get off on that charge? How did he get off? Again, how did he get off? Not to mention, too, he had to go on probation. Somehow he got off with probation. He had to attend anger management classes. So someone clearly signed off. Someone must have signed off saying, "Hey, this guy's fit to go back into society as a normal person." So who was that? Who was it? Where's the records on this kind of stuff? And this just goes to show that the government just completely botched this entire situation. This is why we cannot have. This is why we can't rely on the government for this kind of stuff. This is why I argue for people having the ability to have concealed carry, to own guns, because the cops completely botched the Amber Alert thing. If there's any if there was ever a time to issue the Amber Alert, this was the time, but they never did it. They never did it. They waited almost a half a day, and apparently they were on their way of about to issue it, which is probably just their cover story. But again, this just goes to show just how incompetent the government is, and I'm not blaming the individuals that made these mistakes. The people make mistakes; it's natural. The problem is the system. It can't possibly be there to save people when seconds count. People make mistakes. Stuff like this is so unpredictable that the only way to stop it is to have general citizens there to defend themselves too. And like I say, check the presentation out; it's very good. Um, this is from Spencer Fernando. I thought this was pretty good because it's funny and it's true. If the Canadian media was as tough on Trudeau as the U.S. media is on Trump, Trudeau's approval rating would be 10%. And it's so true too that the media is completely biased in favor of the liberals. It's so obvious. Anybody denying it at this point, it's literally the classic elephant in the room scenario. Like it couldn't be more obvious. Like they're paying CBC $1 billion a year, and yet somehow you still think that they're objectively reporting on it. Like, are you serious? Like, if Trump was giving Fox News billions of dollars a year, would you and a someone on the right came up and told you that Fox was reporting on Trump objectively, you would laugh at him. Like you would laugh. But yet in Canada's scenario, you actually think that. Like, I just wanted to point that out because it's so true, and it's absolutely sad that people still take the CBC, CTV, Global seriously. Like I say, their paycheck depends on them um, being easy on the Trudeau government. Like their paycheck literally depends on it, and that's the definition of a conflict of interest. Like if you're being paid to do something, or if your paycheck depends on only pointing out one side of the story in general and all that kind of stuff, how can you possibly be objective? So, just wanted to point that out. I've pointed this stuff out before, but again, people don't seem to really care about it, so I wanted to point it out again. This guy goes on to say, police in China are becoming violent towards Africans. Should China have a seat on the UN Human Rights Council? Well, I'd say absolutely not. But again, where is the outrage for all these lefties? Where is the outrage? Like I just don't understand. Like I mean, I understand why they don't do it. China's already communist, so that's what the left wants, so that's why they don't criticize. Um, this is from the Rebel. Now, Trump halted immigration to the U.S., I think, for 2 months. I may be wrong on that, but he halted immigration. Now, again, why isn't Canada doing that? Why isn't Canada doing that? We're still bringing in plenty of immigrants, and I have these idiots and saying, "Oh no, we're not bringing in any immigrants." Yeah, we are. We just opened the borders. We're still letting in flights from everywhere. Again, like, are you that stupid? Like, you in that much of a bubble that you literally like you're that shielded from reality? But again, like I don't understand. Like we have millions of people unemployed, we're in massive amounts of debt, but yet we're still bringing in people that we don't need for any reason other than the only benefit of bringing in immigrants at this point is it's votes for the left, and it's especially more future votes for the left. That's the only reason. Like, let's just be honest about it. Like, and I say that all the time. Like, let's just be honest about this kind of stuff already. You're not fooling anyone. Um, this is from Tom Quiggin. If you have okay, so basically, 117 official entry points into Canada have been reopened for illegal migration. And then, Tom Quiggin says, if you have any doubts about whether Justin Trudeau cares more for illegal migrants than he does Canadians, here's your answer. Now, again, this is just like I say, I don't even have words. Like I don't even have words for how crazy things are. Like why why are we doing this? Why is this not something we can all agree on? Like it should be the easiest thing in the world that we can all agree on, but yet for some reason, Justin Trudeau and all these lefties just refuse to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Like I say, it's like 10 elephants in the room, not just one. Um, Again, like I say, absolute craziness. That we can't, in a time like this, that we're still more worried about illegal immigrants than we are our own population. Like again, I'm just speechless when it comes to this stuff. So, um, anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my PayPal and email. I got links in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. And then last thing, as always, check out my BitChute channel as well.